Welcome to Mishna study Masechet Terumot, Perek He Mishna Vav. Over here in this Mishnah, we're going to speak about Meduma that fell into Hulin, right? So if you have a Se'at Teruma, right, that fell into less than 100, right, of Hulin, okay, so now that becomes Meduma. And then you pick it out, and what happens, right? You pick this one out. Now this item is Safek Teruma. And this falls into a different pile. How do we treat this? Right? That's going to be our Mishnah. Right? That Meduma, right? It fell to less than 100, fell to 99. You pick one out, it falls into another place. You know, when you picked out, we consider that Teruma. And when it fell into the next place, if it's Meduma, like regular Terumat Vadai, if it falls into less than 100, it's going to make that whole next item Safek Teruma. Hamim say no. It could only make something Meduma based on the proportion that it had actual Teruma in it. Right? So how so? Imagine if you had 2 se'ah of Teruma that fell into 20 Hulin. Okay, that's Meduma, right? That's for sure less than 100. Now, if you have, so you had 2 that fell into 20. So there's a total of 22, right? If you had 11 of those that fall into 100 se'ah, right? How much of that 11 proportionally is actual teruma? If you're taking the proportion, 1 out of those 11. So now you can have 1 that fell into 100. Okay, if it falls into 100, then the whole thing would be okay. If it falls into less than 100, then it will be meduma, and that's what the Mishnah means. According to that correct proportion, right? So if those 2 fell into 20, makes it meduma, and then 11 of those items fall into less than 100, that whole next pile becomes meduma, becomes safek teruma. Now another statement: similarly, hametz only makes something else hametz according to the correct proportion. Now, just as an intro, in general, we say that if you have some sourdough that's teruma, and you use that sourdough to make challah. You mix it with it. Now, there's more than 1 to 100. Sourdough teruma that you used with regular dough that was hulin. And there's more than, the ratio is greater than 1. It's 1 to 200. It doesn't matter because the sourdough, the teruma is the agent that's causing it to rise, that's causing it to change the property, to turn it into bread. We're going to say it doesn't matter. And even if it is less, even if it's more than a ratio of 1 to 100, it doesn't matter. The whole thing will be safek teruma. Right? That's what we say. That's the din. We'll learn this in Masechet Orla, right? We'll speak about it more. Which is interesting, Rambam actually says, right? The whole Isa itself is considered teruma. He doesn't even say safek teruma. I said so. Yeah, the whole Isa itself is considered teruma, and we don't use the the ratios of 1 to 100, 1 to 200. We'll see Masechet Orla. Now, let's say you have a small amount, a little pinch of sourdough, right? That would go ahead and turn, a pound of flour, into bread. That's all you need. And what do? You take now 2 pounds of flour, of Hulin flour, and you use 2 pinches of sourdough. Okay, so that works. Now the whole thing is considered teruma. Okay, now you go ahead and you take a small amount, a little pinch from here, what we're calling quote unquote teruma now. You take this and you use it, and it gets mixed in with another, right? Now use it to knead more dough. Is this third batch, right? Is this next batch of dough, is that also considered teruma? So we're going to say over here, no. Now it needs to be in the correct proportion, right? So if you use those 2 pinches to make 2 pounds of dough rise, so now if you take 1 pound of that dough at the end, and you mix it with other dough, and you cause the next dough to rise, that would be asud. Why? Because within that 1 pound, you're going to have the proportion of that 1 pinch of sourdough that caused it to rise. But if you're just going to take 1 small pinch off, that's not going to be enough, right? So only according to the proportion. So like we said, right, the first batch became, from the sourdough that you used, the first batch for sure became teruma. But now what we're calling that batch that now quote unquote became teruma, you need to take from that proportionally in order to make the next batch also teruma. The next case is enam shuvim poslim tamikveh ela lefi hashbon. So it's the third statement over here in the Mishnah, and that is, again, just quickly intro. In general, you need 40 se'ah for a mikveh to be kasher, right? Once you have 40 se'ah, you could add as much mayim shuvim, drawn water, as you want, and it's totally fine, right? Once you have a kosher mikveh, you could keep on adding mayim shuvim. Let's say though you don't have 40 se'ah, you less. You have 39 se'ah. Oh, and now you go ahead and you add some drawn water to the mikveh. That makes the mikveh pasul. Okay. Now, over here, the Mishnah was saying, and it doesn't matter in general. You could make it whatever you fill this mayim shuvim from. You could use tiny cups, big cups. Even if you use, right? Even if you use multiple cups, right? So that's what we're speaking about over here. Now, I would just point out, I said 39 lugin, but it's a better language. Harambam used language 37, right? So 3 log of water is going to be posel the mikveh, right? So if you had 37 and you had, 3 log of drawn water, that's going to be posel the mikveh. Now, it doesn't matter if these 3 log come from, these 3 log of drawn water are coming from 4 or 5 kelim. It doesn't matter how many kelim you came. You came and kept on pouring little, smaller cups of water. It's fine. It doesn't matter. It's going to be posel the mikveh. Now comes this Mishnah, and what does it say? That it's not posel the mikveh until you have it from 3 kelim, 3 cups or less. So if you had 37 se'ah of mayim shu of regular kosher water for mikveh, you came ahead and you added the last 3 lugin, but it was from, and it was from 3 different, cups worth. Okay, that's going to be posel. But let's say it was 4 or 5, that would be kasher, right? That's what the Mishnah is saying. That the mayim shuim posel hashbon of the kelim, right? According to the amount of kelim, of cups that you use. And Rambam points out, this is a lone opinion, it's a single opinion, and it's dahui, it's pushed away, it's not halacha. And as we said in the Gemara in Timura, so the fish hashbon kelim veyoseh ben honihi, right? It's the only opinion according to Yosef ben Choni, but according to Chachamim, then mitzaref and then posel the mikveh, as we said, and halacha is like Chachamim and everything. I would just point out, even though Rambam says like Chachamim over here, and he said this last din is a da'at yachid. When it comes to Chibur and Mishneh Torah, if you look it up, you should actually posek like this da'at yachid, right? Interestingly enough, in Hilchot Mikvaot, is posek that if you have if it came from 4 or 5 kelim, they're not mitzaref, right? So it's mashmash is posek like Yosef ben Honi. You can see kapach over here, actually in Mishnah in Mikvaot, also Tosfot in Tov, in Mashdot in Tmura. They understand that Rambam was chozelbo, right? And he's actually retracts from what he said over here, and rather he's posek like the Stat Yachid, that even 4 or 5, that it needs to be from specifically 3 kelim.